Hello everyone. I did promise that Eden's Garden wasn't quite over, even though the finale has been out now. So, last time, when I was doing an Eden's Garden tier list, I did basically the same thing I'm going to do this time, which is I'm ranking them both on how well I think they're written and how much I personally like them. So I'll try to make the distinction clear for when I'm saying this character is bad because, they're poorly written in my opinion, or this character is bad because I don't like them. To be fair, I think there's only like 3 characters maybe that my taste is going to, change the opinion of. So it's mostly about writing. All right. And because it's been so long since I played the prologue, this is the rare chance where I can talk about just chapter 1 for these characters, how good they did in chapter 1. Well, the chapter start just played, so I guess we should start. There's only one character in actively bad, okay? I don't think anyone so far has been that bad, except for Mara. And Mara's only actively bad for one reason. She didn't show up at all in chapter 1. Like, literally was only name dropped, and that was it. So, I put her in actively bad and not just bland, because her being like the dark side of the mastermind duo means that Tozu gets less chances to be threatening. Like, if Tozu was the person who threatened Grace, then, Grace rather, being all like scared of Tozu and like the rules of the game would make a lot more sense than her being scared of Mara right now, which is basically a non-factor. Like, I know she's around, obviously, but the problem is we don't really get to like see it, Like, Grace has only been agonizing about, almost getting killed in like a past tense. You know what I mean? Like, she doesn't see Tozu and have to like relive that moment of, oh god, it's the mastermind who almost killed me. Mara's just like not around, so she doesn't really have to confront that basically ever. And yeah, I don't think the concept of having like splitting the white and black half of Monokuma's, the one where like, I want you to get friendly and increase your bonds, and the one who's like, I want you to kill each other, isn't necessarily like a bad idea. The problem is I just don't really know if like there's been the best implementation of it thus far, because right now Mara just feels like a mounted gun on the wall for as much as she's done, and Tozu mostly just feels like Monokuma. So, that said, he's fine. I think his design is kind of cool, and right now my running theory is that these two are Wolfgang's parents, and they're running this thing together. That's why we saw the picture of them, or like Wolfgang's parents in the thing. But once I saw Diana rather did her flashback of the moment with Wolfgang, where he was like pleading with her about like, I don't want to be like them, I'll never be like you. It makes me think that either the mother is dead and he thought Diana was her because he was drugged and they look vaguely similar, or that was actually him in the photo and he was getting married to a woman that looked kind of like Diana, but then she ended up dying. So, I don't know. Anyway, that has nothing to do with this. I just think Tozu hasn't really like surprised me at all yet. He just feels kind of standard. But that's fine, because I'm not really here for their characters anyway. So let's talk about the actual characters, shall we? Oh, and by the way, there's obviously going to be spoilers for Chapter 1 in this video. So, flee quick before I spoil everything. Last time I did this tier list, I did look at the final results of it, and Cassidy was, I think, my lowest rated character because I found her annoying. And is she still a little annoying? kind of. She does have her Yasuhiro Hagakure moments of shouting something completely, like, non sequitur-y in a trial. But on the most part, I think Cassidy actually kind of settled in for me this chapter. I did not really dislike her that much. She felt like another character rather than just like a joke machine. So that's good. I think that her being a part of the main plot really helped. And her sass actually being used against Eva, who was the killer. Oh, hopefully you left before the spoilers. And it seemed like she actually would have, in any other circumstance, probably been friends with Eva, even though she kind of is closed off and sheltered and kind of, what do I want to say? It's not uppity. It's like morally superior or whatever. I think Cassidy's the kind of person who can just brush all that off, it seems like. Or at least she wants to act that way, which is kind of the vibe I got from this chapter, which is interesting. It's definitely more interesting than anything chapter 1 gave me for Cassidy, so I'll put her in here. Damo. Honestly, maybe that's a hot take. This is not one of the characters that my feelings are influencing it, okay? I actually like Damon. The concept of having kind of an asshole as the protagonist, you know? Not a guy who wants to, like, get along with everyone all the time. I like it. My problem is I just didn't get enough of him in chapter 1. And it feels weird because we're literally playing as him. But his, like, thoughts and feelings about these situations just all felt like he was kind of going with the flow. It was a lot more interesting in chapter 1 where he was kind of going against everybody. In this chapter, everybody was just like, well, Wolfgang's gone. More spoilers. So I guess we'll rely on Damon. And then they did. And there was almost like no consequence. Like there was set up in the script for a consequence where him being a little cagey with the rest of the group almost allows Eva to pin the murder on him. The problem is he doesn't really have any feelings on that. He like has one line where he's like, you wouldn't. And that's it. And then she gets executed. And the only thing he can think about is Diana trying to be a leader. And he's like, I hate that. Okay, your closest friend in the Killing Game just died. And she almost blamed you for the murder. Is that really what you should be thinking about at this point? And I guess that's set up for chapter 2, right? And so that's fine. But, like, in the moment when Eva puts the blame on him, I feel like he should have had a bigger emotional reaction, at least internally. Like, I get that he's, like, kind of a stone-faced debate pro, so he's not going to, like, freak out or anything. But I don't know, it just feels kind of weird that, ostensibly, Eva's, like, his best friend in the Killing Game, and she kills somebody, blames it on him, and then gets executed, and he that's not what he's mostly thinking about. I don't know. It just feels odd. And then, like, the whole stuff with Kai, it's like an odd couple sitcom thing, which, you know, that's fine. It helped Kai a lot. I'll spoil that for you. But I just don't feel like Damon has any real interesting thoughts about Kai. Like, I don't really know how he feels about him other than being vaguely annoyed by him. You know? Like, he never is, like, trying to investigate why Kai is acting the way he is, for example. He's never like, oh, of course, Kai's an influencer, so he would not be thinking about anyone other than himself. No, he's just kind of like, ugh, he wants me to go to a gaming tournament. How annoying. Ugh. You know? Oh, he saw a dead body and now he's not thinking rationally. Ugh. So yeah, sorry, Damo. It's just how the cards... What is that saying? I just completely lost it. The luck of the draw is what I was thinking. Just the luck of the draw for this chapter. We wanted to focus on other characters, probably. That's fine. It's only chapter 1. Desmond! I think Desmond in this chapter is actually solid, which is crazy, because in chapter 1, he was one of the characters I had no opinion on. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot he existed. And honestly, it is kind of like that until the trial. as soon as the trial starts, I was like, oh, Desmond's kind of interesting, you know? Like, he's like, of everybody, the most innocent until proven guilty person out of the cast. Where he's like, okay, I'm hearing what you're saying, and I want to take your word for it, but here's the evidence that we have, right? And that's cool. I like that he's willing to confront Grace because she's acting irrationally. He's got a good head on his shoulders or whatever, which I guess comes from being a marksman, right? He's all about waiting and patience and all of that. Anyway, I'm happy that Desmond is no longer a bland character, in my opinion. I really want him to continue to be interesting, I guess is the best thing I can say. Like, I really hope he doesn't have a role in this chapter because of the stun gun, and then in chapter 2, he's just going to be fading into the background again. That would be a little sad. I can't talk about Diana yet. I can't do it. She's too relevant. Let's put all the, like, very important characters at the end here. Eloise! Sorry. Like, I don't dislike Eloise, let me be clear. I just think she hasn't really surprised me at all yet. The idea of her being, like, kind of shy and socially awkward, but, like, having good morals, it's like, okay, that's something, I guess. I just feel like we haven't really... Because she's so shy, right, and in the big group conversation she barely contributes, I feel like I haven't learned anything about her. And I should have mentioned this at the very beginning. This is discounting free time events completely, which I try to do at least, for these tier lists, at least for the first one. Sometimes I'll do one after with, like, the full context. Because I don't think FTEs should make or break a character. If they do, then I feel like they're poorly written, in my opinion. Because if it takes going into the FTEs to understand their motivations in the murder plot, that's bad. And that is the case, especially in Danganronpa 1, not really. Most of the FTEs in Danganronpa 1 are completely fluff, which feels like it's a bad thing, but it's actually a good thing, in my opinion. Because it lets you, like, learn more about the backstory of the character, of, like, you know, just, like, random stuff like, oh yeah, Sayaka has a little sister, that kind of thing. Or Sayaka grew up alone. That's what it actually is. Never mind. She had planned to have a little sister in Danganronpa Another Episode, but then they deleted that because they forgot that she says specifically she doesn't have one. That's what I was thinking of. Anyway. So yeah, right now, Eloise, there's just nothing really there for me. She hasn't really made much of an impact in my brain. At least in chapter 1. Maybe she was actually really good in the prologue and I don't remember. Grace. There's definitely a lot to Grace. The problem is, like I was saying, her main rival is barely in the game. And her relationship with Wolfgang happens all off screen, basically. So I don't really feel for her when Wolfgang dies. Especially because she's so abrasive. So I'll put her in here. I think that's best. Ingrid. Ingrid's another character that feels kind of like, okay, I don't really get her whole deal yet. But she's kind of being group mom, I guess, right now. And that's fine. I think her taking care of Toshiko is kind of like a fun role for her. Especially because you just know it's going to go poorly for her in the future. One way or another. So I'll put her in decent. Actually, you know what? She can go in solid. I don't think I have any complaints, really. She's just, like, hasn't been important to a case yet, is all. Do you guys want to... This is probably the actual hottest take of the video. I didn't really think I was going to do this until I looked at him. Now, the problem isn't that John is bad, necessarily. The problem is he is too good at everything. When Jean talked about the lithium batteries, I was like, shouldn't this be stuff going to somebody else? You know what I mean? Like, you know, I'm sure he would know about them, but it kind of feels like he shouldn't be the one talking about this. And, like, I don't know. there's just something about it, specifically in the trial, where it felt like Jean had all the answers the whole time. He's like, oh, yes, that makes sense. No, that can't happen like that. I'm like, oh, what? He kind of feels like a Kyoko almost, where it's like Kyoko just has all the answers because she's the ultimate detective, and it's kind of just bullshit, right? Just like she has like a third eye or something to see all the clues. And honestly, Jean kind of feels like that for me right now. Like he's always right about everything. He's always on the right side of history. And he discovered the pharmacy, and he goes like, oh, I never should have showed you the pharmacy. This is my fault. It's like, no, it's not. Don't even start with me. And then his like ship captain background feels very purposefully, I think. I think this part is definitely purposeful. Because Grace and like somebody else brings attention to the fact that he doesn't really seem like a ship captain. He seems like, something else. But I don't know. He just feels too good right now. He's not important to this case at all, and yet it feels like we're getting his opinion on everything. I hope you guys aren't too mad, because I can understand why you would like him. I think if I was in a different frame of mind while playing through the chapter, it very much could have ended up like that for me. But I was really trying to pay attention to these like lesser served characters so that I could make this list. So the fact that Jean kept getting brought up, it really stood out to me, I guess. I don't know. It seems like he just got like too much screen time for how little he actually mattered to this chapter, And it takes away from a character like Jet, who actually was fairly important to this chapter, ostensibly, because he was part of the video game tournament planning group. And he doesn't even know what the lithium batteries in his room do or what they look like. He's definitely the most Yasuhiro character out of everybody here. And why I say that is because Yasuhiro is my least favorite Danganronpa character probably ever. He never contributes anything useful. He never does anything interesting. Like, he never forms an interesting relationship with another character. His talent is basically a meme, And Jet feels the most like that right now. So I'm putting him in bland so far. But I think the most interesting thing about him in this chapter is that he was kind of a bully. Like, he's kind of, like, I kind of expected him to be like a dumb jock, but he's actually kind of mean-spirited. Like, he makes fun of Toshiko for her childhood fear. Like, she's 13, man. Give it a break. And then, what was the other one? Oh. I can't remember. I think it might have been some comment he made about Diana or Wolfgang. I feel like it was another woman, because I was going to make the joke he's like misogynistic or something, but I don't think that's actually what it is. But he made some kind of like weird joke that like really didn't fit the scene. And I was like, what is wrong with this man? It's like, if you watch my playthrough, I'm sure I pointed it out. I don't know. I'm not against a character being mean. It just doesn't seem like that's the direction they actually want to go with Jet as a character. Like, it doesn't seem like they want him to be a Grace, for example, where he's purposefully made to be abrasive. He's mostly just kind of like, I'm a joke character, and then he says something cruel. I'm like, why? Why'd you do that? I'm actually going to save Kai, too. Mark. I think Mark being Jet's beleaguered partner in comedy is kind of funny. And I think sort of the way they use him in the plot is interesting in this one, where he's like very serious about finding the killer, but also very like incapable of doing that by his own skills. You know what I mean? He's just like trying to set the record straight when he can, which is kind of cool. It's like a different role. I did mention this while the case was actually playing out in my playthrough, but I am thankful that they've actually written these characters other than Jean to feel like amateur detectives. You know what I mean? Like, none of them feel too smart. They don't all know like just enough to like be useful in certain situations, but none of them feel so intelligent, except Jean, that they could just have the answer to every question. And they're like, okay, but what do you think, Damon? You know, the meme. Toshiko didn't really get much to do in this chapter, eh? Her only real big thing was providing some backup for Grace's alibi and crying. I still think she's, like, interesting, though, just as a concept of having a child in the Killing Game, especially one who's, like, trying to be grown up. It's, you know. Ulysses. Surprisingly, not terrible. I actually think he was done pretty well. This is another character that was in my bland tier last time for hasn't done anything yet. And yeah, him being like Winona's secretary, essentially, and taking notes on the crime scene and trying to point out logical inconsistencies. I don't know. It's something. And then you have the whole little conversation about his parents just trying every drug on him until one worked. It's like, oh, okay. I understand why he's so methodical now. You know? It's good. It's good. I have a soft spot for Winona. Just because of her character design. Mostly. But I think I have to put her in here for now. She's clearly going to grow to be the rival sort of character, especially now that Eva's gone, and that was basically her role in this trial. She feels a lot like Byakuya in a lot of ways, but slightly better because at least she's not like... what's the word? Snobbish, I guess. Like, she is fabulously wealthy, but she doesn't really see wealth as her accomplishment. It's like all the feats that she's accomplished with the money. You know what I mean? So there's something a little bit more likable to that idea, even if she's still kind of unlikable as a person. And yeah, she got a couple good lines in this chapter. Specifically, her breaking down why Eva killed in a very Byakuya-like way, but saying like, oh yeah, she just thought she was smarter than all of us and that she could pull this off. And now that we've outsmarted her, she thinks it's unfair. Yeah, okay. Because it is kind of Eva's fatal flaw in this case, essentially, is she thought nobody was paying attention to her and nobody was as smart as her if she took out Wolfgang. And yeah, it didn't work out that way. Sorry. Anyway. Okay, I'll talk about Kai. Fine. You know, looking at this list, I feel like a lot of the characters I like more are not in Solid. Like, I don't particularly like any of these guys. They're just, like, good. Like, I can't deny that they're good. I think my favorite character is well, okay, we haven't got to my favorite character so far. It's my archetype of character, okay? You can't blame me. But, like, I like Damon conceptually. I like Winona. I like Desmond and Diana, I think, probably right now. I also liked Eva and Wolfgang. Dang. Sucks to be me, I guess. But also, the game was trying to lead you in that direction, obviously. Anyway, I should talk about Kai. He's fine. I don't really have any thoughts one way or the other. I think it's kind of interesting that he doesn't actually seem to be intentionally malicious. Like, the way he's set up with the pink hair with butterflies and, like, being an influencer, your immediate thought is, like, okay, he's completely self-absorbed and he just wants, you know, everybody's attention all the time. And now that he's, you know, locked in here and has to socially interact with real people in real conversations, he's going to be, like, out of his element and maybe lash out. No. He actually is just kind of like a normal guy. He's probably the most normal guy out of everyone here, which is kind of funny. But it's an interesting subversion. And I like the way that they kind of slowly revealed it in this chapter almost. Where, like, every time Damon goes back to the room, you're expecting some big dramatic moment from him. But no, he's kind of just chill. Maybe a little selfish, but, like, not any more than the average person is, probably. You know? It's interesting. It's an interesting direction. I like it. So let's do Wolfgang first. I am shocked. No pun intended. God. That Wolfgang is already dead. I am not shocked that Eva was a killer, because obviously she was in the Sayaka role, so, you know, it makes sense. I'm a little shocked that Wolfgang died, though. That was probably the last person I would have expected to die. Well, other than Damon. That said, I think it really works. It's the same sort of thing they do with Tugami in Danganronpa 2, where they set him up as the glue holding the group together and then kill him. It's like, okay, how is the group going to like break up now that he's gone? Yeah, I have no complaints about Wolfgang, especially now that he's dead. I think everything works out. Funny, this would be the song that would come on as soon as we get to Eva. Eva is so close to being top tier. She just has one little break in her armor, okay? That puts her down to probably here. And that little break in her armor is the little tidbit they throw in right at the end of the trial. Why did it have to be right there? Just don't say it. And I think it's because they made her too unlikable. When she says that Tozu basically forced her to kill as soon as she got the traitor perk, that broke it for me. Her motivation was so well laid out. And like, it was like tragic, but you also didn't really feel that bad for her because it's her own damn fault. You know what I mean? So, to further explain what I'm talking about, basically, it's what Winona said, plus one extra layer of irony. Eva thought she was smarter than everyone here, and that nobody cared about her that much. It's the same as everywhere else, right? She's the prodigy student, and everybody else would envy her, but wouldn't want to be her friend or get to know her. Her problem, however, is one student actually did get to know her and grew to trust her. And because of that, Damon is able to essentially unravel her scheme. It's the irony that the reason she was killing someone is because she didn't really feel that bad because all these people hated her. But, ironically, this is the first friend she ever made. And that's the person who has to unravel her crime in order to save everybody else who was actively, you know, hurting them both earlier. It's really well written. It's really good. It's like, if only they didn't then lampshade it by saying, oh, also she was forced to. It's like, no, just let her be bad. Just let her be a bad person. It's okay. We can like fantasize or whatever about the what if scenario where this never happened to these people. And then she's able to like actually grow into a better person and open up to everybody over time, right? She can be a bad person in the Killing Game. That's totally fine. Even if people like her, they will still like her. I mean, Nagito and Kokichi are just the finest examples of that. So yeah, it really sucks because I honestly feel like she could have been like nearly a perfect killer. Like, I didn't really see it coming. She killed somebody I didn't see coming. It all makes sense. She's got like great motive. All of it. But then they just had to throw that little nugget of blah in there. Shaking my head. Anyway, I really like Diana. And this is very biased. I think probably if I was unbiased, I'd put her probably in here. But I like that they set her up as the red herring, and I actually fell for that. I almost never fall for the red herrings in Danganronpa because usually the writing is very predictable. And I think if you go to like my V3 playthrough, I think that holds true. I don't think I was ever like, oh, well, maybe this person did it, and then they turned out to be the red herring. Usually those are like pretty well laid out. But the way Damon, and it really just comes from the one line Damon had, that's a very load-bearing line of dialogue, of where Diana is talking to Damon, and she says something along the lines of like, oh, how are you doing? Have you talked to Eva recently? And it made me believe in my detective brain, amateur detective brain, that she'd actually overheard Damon and Eva talking about their motives. And like that would play into why like this whole complicated scheme got set up and how she knew about like Wolfgang's blackmail and stuff. No. Eva set her up because she thought she was making fun of her, essentially, when she was trying to, like, actually wholesomely be her friend. Damn, that sucks. And then her taking the spark of hope or whatever and trying to fill Wolfgang's shoes for the next chapter. I mean, it doesn't spell good things for her future survival, but it is very interesting, and I like it a lot. That said, I think the best character in the game right now still has to be Eva, personally. I'm just going to completely ignore that line where she said she was forced to do it and continue to go with the, you know, her actual motivation laid out by the characters and the story. Anyway, that's my list. You can disagree with it if you like. That is perfectly fine. Also, yes, like I said, there was no FTEs in this. Maybe my opinion will change after I see them all. That is going to be something I'm going to do on the channel eventually. I don't think all of them are finished. Actually, I don't know if any of them are finished, but that'll make it go quicker. Yay. All right. Well, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Bye.